Hi, I'm Tom Burgess. Thank you for listening to The Real Agenda, the podcast of political change. Welcome to the second episode in our Profit for Purpose series, where we talk to business leaders about leading the change in turning business into a force for good and making a significant contribution to a more inclusive and sustainable economy. And at the same time, make a positive impact on reducing inequality, because that's the real agenda. Now today we go back to being babies and those mealtime mashup, which we don't remember, but if you're parents, you certainly do. Today we talk to Paul Lindley, founder of Ella's Kitchen, which my baby friends assure me is really tasty and wholesome feast of a menu. Now Paul set up Ella's Kitchen in 2004 and its products were launched in UK supermarkets almost 2 years later. Ella's Kitchen now has a presence in 35 territories and a 28% market share, making it the biggest baby food brand by value in the UK, and with a global turnover of more than 100 million. The business was sold in 2013, but as Paul will tell us, the financial metrics were not the driving force, and from the very start there was a clear mission, and that really helped the business succeed. Since leaving the company, Paul has devoted his time to bringing change, and in today's episode he explains his motivation, what he thinks is wrong with the capitalist system, what could be done to improve it so that it works for all of us, and what we, the people, can do to bring about positive change. So I started by asking Paul why he created Ella's Kitchen.
I started Ella's Kitchen from motivations from two or three places probably. Life experience was one, so I had spent 10 years at Nickelodeon and risen to the general manager. What I learned there was how to build a brand and how to make that children's first, and I, in previous life, had been an accountant, so I became a marketeer and a brand sort of person through my time at Nickelodeon. But what I really learned that affected me a lot was an introduction to some of the challenges that children have in our society, and that especially around health, things were getting worse, but television was being blamed for their state of their health. Either kids were watching television and not exercising, or watching television and watching bad ads. And we were sort of dealing with that, but that was sort of in my background. I knew how to build a brand to connect with kids primarily. I knew my finance background about business, and I knew this problem we had in society of children's health. And then in my personal life, I had my first child, my daughter Ella, and I was going through lived experience of trying to wean a child that was rejecting some foods, and I resorted to what I'm quite good at, which is silliness and mess and games, to try and get her to enjoy it. So on that side of things, I was working out children need good food, but if you make food fun for them, they'll like it. So all of those things I brought together to think someone should create a business that is children's first, really emotional in itself, to make money, but to create to solve a social issue at the same time. And then I thought, well, that person should be me. I'm at a stage of life where I'd like to risk this failing against the experience that I'll gain from it, against just staying on a corporate career. So that was my main motivation. But I was also sort of getting this sense of questioning, what's my purpose in life? What kind of the big questions of why are we here, and how we created a society that we've created. And I sort of have worked out that business is the best solution we as a society have found for innovation, for wealth creation, but we've kind of begun to lose track of what the purpose of wealth creation is for. And I was thinking, well, I've got this idea of a business that has this purpose, this mission at the heart of it, that I know we need to make money, but I know the purpose for making the money. I wanted to try that. So ultimately I got to the point where I thought I would have regretted more not doing the journey that I went on and starting a business, watching somebody else maybe have done it and having a nice corporate career. I thought that would have been worse than trying, failing, learning and moving on. And so I took the step and went for it.
So it was with a sense of purpose rather than I need to find a way to make a lot of money?
It was definitely with a sense of purpose. I was questioning what can I do that uses my skills, crucially makes me a better person, makes me a happier person, a more fulfilled person, but also a sort of sense of responsibility, I guess, that here's an idea, here's a lot of experience I've got, here's a problem I can see, if I don't sort of give this a whack, who's going to?
So looking at the bigger picture, what would you say is wrong with the capitalist system?
I think capitalism is in a real crossroads at the moment, and if we keep going straight, we are potentially going to go to a dead end and see the end of capitalism. And I don't see anything particularly there that will replace it. I think the last century saw this big battle between sort of liberal democracy and capitalism together, evolving against fascism and communism and the economic systems around that, and liberal democracy and capitalism clearly won. But fast forward 20 years into this century, the excesses of both are coming back to bite, and the society, the young people, the next generation of people, citizens, voters, business people are not satisfied with what it is, what capitalism is, and clearly some aspects to democracy. And I think there are fundamental flaws in the capitalist system that we've got. I think we measure the wrong things, whether that's the easy things that we measure, like money and numbers. We measure them because they're easy. We could ascribe numbers and to other aspects of the things that a business does, rather than just the profits, which are a made-up number anyway. I think we measure things in the wrong time scale, or the incentives are to measure things in short term, where everything that human beings strive for is long term. I think the ideas of EBITDA and GDP on a national level just measure volume. They don't differentiate between whether those volumes that we're producing are good things or bad things, or the human aspect to things around them, whether they are improving people's lives or not. And I think we need to readjust to bring human beings back into business culture, the regulation and the sort of way that our economy is structured. We've moved far too far away from the impact that a business can have on an individual person, whether that's a shareholder, an employee, an owner, supplier, customer, consumer. We all interact with business, and we've all forgotten somehow that it's to improve all of those people's lives that we are bothering to invent things, create things, market things, and sell things that improve other people's lives.
But for some businesses, a small business maybe starting up, life can be very tough, and having a wider view on things may be very difficult.
My thoughts are that if you've got an idea for a business and that your heart and soul is not into that business and what you're trying to do, because it's something inside of you that you're trying to do, then it won't succeed as much as if that was inside you. I sort of mean people who go out and see things in other markets, other countries, and think that's a good idea, I'll bring it back. They have no interest really in the product or the service or the impact it will have on people, but just see a way of making money. I think they'll make less money than if it's something that's inside of them that they care about, that gets them out of bed every morning, that when there are bad days, of which there will be many, that's the thing that gets you through, not the allure of one day I'm going to sell this business for a lot of money. I don't think you'll sell them for as much money as you would if you do that. I'd say to those entrepreneurs who are just looking to make that quick buck, you're only going to make that quick buck if other people help you along the way. Some people you'll pay to help you, and they may be your employees or your sort of consultants or whatever, but don't mistake the fact that the money you pay them is the only thing that they care about to do with your business. If that's all they care about, they will do the minimum amount of work that you set in a contract for them to do. You want them to be thinking about your business as they're walking the dog, as they're getting in the shower, as they're going into work, thinking about their colleagues' work so that they can help that, so that they can help themselves with deliver the mission of what they're trying to do. Obviously you've got to pay people well, but you want them to love your business, and you want them to learn and grow with your business as you do. You will make a better business if you do that. And then there's the sort of wider things about the success of businesses, the sort of externalities that our economic system has created that perhaps entrepreneurs don't think about, but the road systems and the police and the hospitals and the education system that provides the people that come to work for you. Now, starting up a business, you're not going to think about that, but as you grow your business, entrepreneurs who have the hubris to ignore all of that and think it's just them, and people work for them and they pay them and that's their reward, and they pay their taxes and therefore there should be police on the roads that keep this truck safe, that takes their product from factory to store. And my journey, and I've learned that doesn't work like that, and that it's an ecosystem we've created where we rely on each other, And fundamentally, my learnings from my sort of 20, 30 years in business is that it's all about people. Money follows people. We want to create money, we want to create wealth and prosperity, to do something with it. And that what we do with it will be to the benefit of the way people live their lives. So if we centre business on people and not just the money aspect of it, we'll have better businesses and we'll know what to do with the wealth that we create in a better way.
Because that's the thing, isn't it, that people say, I'm a self-made person, or they referred to as a self-made man, self-made woman, whereas in fact that's not really the case, is it?
It's not the case from the things that I've just said, but I do think there is something something positive in the underlying thing of the mentality of I started with nothing and I've created something for myself and for others. Because from a financial point of view, it teaches you that it's the pennies that count. When you've got a lot of money, don't spend it on, just because you've got money, don't get in the consultants and the outside help if you don't actually need it. So kind of cut your cloth according to what you've got, but always remember that it's about the pennies.
So the wealth that businesses create, whose wealth is that?
Wow, that's a great philosophical question. So the question is, what is wealth? So we tend to think about it in terms of money and how much money we've got in the bank, what assets we've got access to, but to take the very, very macro view, we live on planet Earth that has got so many resources that are finite. Nothing leaves this planet. It stays in. Water falls as rain, it goes into the ocean, it comes back up into clouds and there's water again. We mine stuff from the ground, we make products with it, but it stays on the earth. Energy that the human being has comes from food. So everything is connected. So we've only got so many resources. So how we use those resources is the real measure of wealth, I think. The joy that we get from using those resources is the measure of wealth. People ask or say to someone like myself, oh, you've been very successful, but I don't measure success by what's in my bank account. I measure success in the impact that I can create and the relationships that I've got, both personal and professional, and sort of the added value that I can give to the world and learn from the world. So if you take the narrow definition of wealth, whose wealth is money, then I do think there's a risk-reward dynamic that drives behaviour and brings innovation and allows people to take risks, and I do think that people should benefit from that. I think whether you're talking about an individual like you and I, or you're talking about government who represents a whole load of individuals on the big level, the best decisions about how wealth is spent are made by people closest to the problems or the issues or the challenges that wealth is being spent on. So you can take that down to uncomfortable things like, I don't know, charities are better giving money to people in need than giving services, or somebody else higher up the chain deciding that's what that person needs to make a better life. But that's how I see. So I think people should get a fair reward. Entrepreneurs who risk everything, financially and perhaps emotionally, should get their fair reward, but they should also remember that they got that reward because of the services that the society that we created has helped them, and the work of their team and the luck. So a fair tax system, fair philanthropy or sort of mindset system that I am an individual but I'm also part of society is cultural, and that's something we can't legislate for, but we can evolve and we can move on. And I actually think the sort of millennial, post-millennial generation of people that are going to enter the workforce, run companies, run our politics in the next 10 or 15 years have got a much better sense of I'm part of a society, I can make a difference to that society as well as better my own life, and that gives me optimism despite all the challenges we've got with business, capitalism, the economy and democracy.
So with Ella's Kitchen you became a B Corporation. So tell us about that.
I think becoming a B Corporation is the proudest part of my whole Ella's Kitchen journey, I would say, because it's the thing that validates everything that I stood for, really, and it happened after I had sold the company. B Corporations are pioneering businesses that are aiming to redefine what success is in business. It's an accreditation, it's a kite mark and a status that requires audit and requires a company to attain an audited level of governance and economic and social impact standards. But effectively, companies that become B Corp change their constitution legally of their company to say that we're no longer about the primacy of the shareholder and we're looking to maximise the shareholder's wealth. We're about optimising stakeholders. returns, which means that we have a responsibility to our teams and the communities that we work in and the environments around us, as well as to making profit. So profit is vitally important for B Corps, but not at the expense of other things that a business has an impact on. There are only about 200 or 300 companies in the UK that are B Corps. Ella's Kitchen is very proud to be one of the first ones. But what it does is it validates the idea that this business is a force for good, and there's a mission embedded in that business that is beyond making profit. It helps nudge capitalism, the economy, towards a more human-centred society, and I think there will be a tipping point, whether it's B Corp or B Corp-like companies. There will be a tipping point in the coming years where things like the Companies Act start to change, and the way bonuses are given and the way corporations are regulated around something that is in the heart of B Corps. For example, Ella's Kitchen has had people applying to them since it got its accreditation just because it's a B Corp. You've got young people looking to work for companies that have got mission as well as purpose. Ella's Kitchen also has taken its B Corp status and tried to amplify the impact that it has through being a B Corp by saying to every supplier that's a contract with Ella's Kitchen, we want to see you take the B Corp test. You don't need to be a B Corp. We like to see what number you score on the test, and then in 2 years' time we're going to ask you again. If it's gone down, we're going to ask you some serious questions about why it's gone down, and we're going to try and help you make it go up. And I know that 4 of the top 5 suppliers have become B corporations because Ella's Kitchen started them on that journey. These are big companies that amplifies. They all do 4 or 5 each, and that starts to be cultural, and that makes a huge difference. And that's the sort of thing that you don't need regulation from. You just need business leaders that can see that the best way that they can make profit and make long-term profit and sustainability for their businesses is by engaging their staff and their people and their customers and their suppliers in doing the right things. They all sort of come together. We sold Ella's in 2013, and in 2015 Ella's became a B Corp when I had no legal power within there, and I was chairman by that stage, and I could just nudge and hope that the public company that I'd sold Ella's to would go on this journey of seeing the value of, it doesn't matter what quarter's results are now, in the long term it's what the sustainability of every subsidiary that it's got is, and B Corporation status is a great way to protect that and grow the overall company.
So what can we, the people, do to bring about this change in the capitalist, the business system, the way so business becomes a force for good? Not just we, the people, but also the businesses.
Yeah.
So, what positive action could we suggest to government or to organisations that they do?
I think there's a lot of action that all of us can take in nudging capitalism and our economy to work better for all people. I think each of us is engaged in the economy in some sort of way, so we buy stuff. So we can make decisions about what we want to buy, and that can have real effect if we get momentum, little seeds of momentum, little ripples can bring waves of change that can really bring down the establishment and the way things are done. You just look at the effect of plastic. There was like one 3-minute section of a Blue Planet episode where a seahorse had plastic wrapped around it, and that is the touch point for a whole load of changes to business driven by consumer perception and influencing government regulation about 2 years ago. So the momentum behind that so quickly has gone, and businesses are reacting because they, as people who run those businesses, think it's the right thing to do, but they've got pressure from both shareholders and customers to say that they're going to change their behaviour about how they invest or how they buy. Each of us, however small we feel in society, buy stuff, and we can affect companies' outcomes by making decisions on what we buy based on our own values. Then we can put pressure on each of us. Almost all of us will have some sort of pension, will have some sort of influence on how public companies can operate. We might not feel as though we do, and we don't own shares, but all of us that have pensions own shares in some sort of way. So if we can work out how, when you and I go into a supermarket and we choose the smoothie we want based on not just its taste of it and the price of it, but also the ethics behind it, why don't we do that with our pensions? And each of us can nudge the pension advisor or the pension company or the investors that those pensions invest in to change the dynamic of the things that they're looking for the companies that they invest in. So if we've got millions of people voting for X Factor every Saturday night, can't we devise a way that the democracy that brings, bring it to companies, so that instead of having AGMs where it's only the big shareholders that actually vote for how management sets its targets and what the company is doing about the environment or society, that we can all vote as little shareholders just online really quickly, and we can pool those assets and those resources. So let's use technology in a way to create a better society through changing business. Yes, through creating campaigns about not buying things, which we can do easily, but also not investing in companies that aren't, society doesn't feel that's good for them. So both of those things each of us can individually make a difference. And then the third thing, for those of us that work for businesses, we can voice our opinions within those businesses. And sometimes it takes brave people to stand up and whistle blow or call out what they see as wrong. But with social media and the way the river is flowing, the direction of that flow, there'll be more and more support behind that. And we calling out what's wrong, and each of us standing up within a business when we don't see something, when someone's discriminated against, or there's some decision taken that is going to affect the environment or affect people's ability to buy those products, we can all make a difference there. So there's just three examples of little things you and I can make in our day-to-day lives. But if I take the whole thing back to, there isn't this concept of business and an economy divorced from people and society. Business and an economy is made up of people. It is made up of people making decisions that are human decisions. Some are right, some are wrong, some are based on logic, some are based on emotion, some will be to gain experience, some are from experience. All of them are really just human decisions. So making how we build an economy based on how our business culture is really just a reflection, should be just a reflection of the people in the society that are in it. We've built laws, regulations, and precedents that if they're not fit for the future, we need to start to break down.
So really it's about bringing more humanity back into business and also changing the metrics of success.
It is. Now, if I go back we could go back hundreds of years, probably thousands of years actually, to look when the word company first came into existence. The etymology of the word company is from Latin, and it comes from com and panis, which is with bread. So it's about people coming together, breaking bread, sharing bread, coming up with ideas, and then aligning that they want to do that together. But it's about people. So they come up, they have an idea, they create a business, and they make profit from that business, and they live better lives from that, and they're providing products and service that help people. And somehow along the way, we've lost that it's not with bread, bringing people together, it's for profit, and it's for money, and that breaks down. If we remember that, the heart of what a company is about people. Then you fast forward to this sort of industrial revolution, the first time there were stock exchanges and really capitalism for the first time in the mid-19th century. Those companies, those first big companies, did not measure their success by what their EBITDA was. That wasn't a thing, EBITDA, back then. GDP wasn't an acronym then. What they measured the success of those companies was on society. They were human measures in terms of minds and bodies rather than dollars and cents, pounds and pence. They measured rates of incarceration, education levels, health levels, prostitution levels, drunkenness levels, those sort of things. And they wanted to see the indications that those things were going the right way, and if they were, then they saw that as the value that those companies were created. And somehow we've got to get back to some of those measures. And just because happiness or kindness is a difficult thing to measure, we shouldn't not measure it. Just because profit is an easy thing to measure, we shouldn't rely exclusively on it. And by the way, it's easy because it's easy to measure. It's also easy to distort. You and I know that you could set up a company, I could set one up. We could sell exactly the same things, having bought the products, the ingredients, or the supply at exactly the same price. And you could show a different profit than me because of the way you account for depreciation or some sort of intangible asset, and therefore we're telling the world we've done differently, and therefore we can spin those things. So let's not just measure what's easy, let's measure what's important, and let's find ways of doing that. I'm a big believer that the future of success of the economy is tied up to bringing in measures around the Sustainable Development Goals into business measurement. Governments have spent millions, hundreds of millions on creating these, and they're intuitive. As a brand person, I know they're beautifully iconic sort of images. They've managed to bring down very difficult problems of the global challenges into 17 interconnected goals. So much time has been invested in that the next obvious step for me is to integrate them into company law, into company culture, and into measures of success, so that an investor with a portfolio can say, I am interested in the environment primarily, so I want to invest in companies that are doing really good for the environment. With the SDGs, you could see that. Or somebody else might say, well, I'm interested in all the 17 SDGs, the global issues are all interconnected. I want a portfolio that has all of them. You might get a young person coming into the workplace wanting to work for something that their values are about human rights, and they'd be able to narrow the companies down around that. So I think the SDGs are vital. Final thing I'll sort of say is this little theory that I've got really around looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the way that people attain more self-satisfaction and self-belief in themselves and fulfillment. Each layer of attainment is built on another. So Maslow had the very basic needs of pretty much human rights needs of clean water and shelter and clothing and that sort of thing, and above that you get more self-actualized to deepen your lives. Now I think that's a simple way of looking at that is around the letter L. So living, loving, learning and leaving a legacy. I think that's the hierarchy I'd like to see within our own lives of earning enough money to live, loving what we're doing, learning as we go through life and leaving a legacy when our life ends. And I think that's exactly the same with companies. If companies could build themselves from the very start and saying, let's create profits that we can live, but let's pay people who work for us enough that they can live. Let's love what we do by ingraining a mission into our company status so that it's far more beyond short-term profit and it's got sustainability behind it. And let's encourage everybody who interacts with us to love what we're doing. Let's learn as we go through our journey as a company. Let's make mistakes and learn from them and adapt them and make bigger successes because we were brave enough to take those risk decisions. And let's help our people who work with us learn through their life to self-fulfill. And let's our company leave a legacy to this society from why it existed. And likewise, everyone that interacts with us, let them leave their handprint, let them feel as though they've left their handprint in developing the company and the impact that it's got. And I think if we just lived that living, loving, learning, leaving a legacy rule through companies and through our individual lives, we'd get to a better place quickly.
And now that you've left Ella's Kitchen, you're now busier than ever spreading the message.
What I try to do is use those experiences that I've had, this idea of an entrepreneurial mindset, open mindset that anything is possible, to other areas of our society that isn't necessarily just for-profit businesses, although they're vitally important to the success of a society. So social enterprise, the idea of circular economies and the idea of mission-led businesses through social enterprises. I'm on the board of a fantastic business called Toast Ale, which takes surplus fresh bread and makes fantastic beer from it. So it creates a product, it creates skills for people who can make beer and sell beer, it gives enjoyment to people who like drinking beer, but it takes food waste away, reduces food waste, given that 44% of the bread that's baked today will never be eaten. That's our little way of addressing that. I chair and founded a human rights organisation in the UK called Robert Kennedy Human Rights UK that tries to address some of the challenges we have in our society where we're driven apart as people from each other, and that includes education and all sorts of parts of our society, but including business, and this idea that we can all influence the businesses that we, through our pension funds, invest in, and the managers of businesses should reflect that. I just am chair of London's Child Obesity Task Force, where we have just issued a call to action for all leaders in London to change the environment that London has so that less children are in a healthy weight. But we've used entrepreneurial, brave, bold ideas within that, some of which will fail, most of which won't, but this idea of a whole system approach where an entrepreneur is kind of influence a public policy area. And finally, I wrote a book a couple of years ago which sums up pretty much everything that I've been saying in an unusual way. My book is called Little Wins, and it argues that there's this huge power in thinking like a toddler, not acting like a toddler, thinking like a toddler, because toddlers are the best people that exist. You and I were the best person when we were 5 years old because we had this free thinking, this imagination, this self-confidence, this honesty, this collaboration mindset, this ability, this propensity to fail and just get on with it and adapt, which kind of gets knocked out of us as we go through life. So we go with that mentality to one where an education system has narrowed our opportunities, so we study one subject by the time we're 20 and we've 3 subjects by the time we're 16, and then the corporate system tells tells us that we must conform, that we must act like everybody else and think like everybody else, that our bonuses are dependent on growing profit by 5% this year and no impact for future years. And we react to that because it's in our short-term interest, but we should be rebelling against it because it's not in our long-term interest. If we're going to find the solutions to the problems that we've got in our personal lives, in our business lives, and in our society now, we need new solutions, and we need the ability to try them. The education system, our parenting system, and the corporate system especially is designed so we're not encouraged to take those risks and to find those new solutions. And I'll bring everything back to two unique things about human beings that really we don't harness enough in the economy or society yet. One is trust. Everything is built on trust in my view. Businesses don't trust other businesses. People within businesses trust other businesses, whether it's through those personal relationships, the experience they had with them, or undermined by their contracts. Trust is vital, and we're entering a phase where trust is breaking down. We need to build it back up. And then the second thing is human beings have this ability to imagine what doesn't exist and then have the ingenuity to make it exist. And we make it exist not because you or I have this great idea, that's vital, but we have a great idea and then we can communicate and inspire and collaborate with others to make it happen. And that's the bit that I really worry is lost from business and society in general. This idea that it's that combination of individuals and ideas with the rest, with other people to help things grow and happen and an idea become a reality. That's how the great entrepreneurs who changed our society in the last 100 years have gone about things. They've embraced the other people that helped them get there, and we should build institutions and rewards and incentives to help that happen more often.
Thanks very much, Paul. That's absolutely great, and I wish you all the best with getting the message out there and bringing other people into what you're talking about.
Thank you very much,
we
Tom.
need it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
If you'd like to find out more about what Paul Lindley has to say and what he is now doing, go to paullindley.uk. If you want to hear about his involvement in human rights, go to rfkhumanrights.org. And if you want to check out Ella's Kitchen, then go to ellaskitchen.co.uk, where you'll also find info on the company tax strategy, as well as a section called The Good Things We Do. To find out more about B Corporations, then you can look that up at bcorporation.uk. So let us know what you think. Do email us info@realagenda.org or contact us via our website, realagenda.org. And if you'd like to help with the Real Agenda, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy our shows, tell your friends and also give us a review with your podcast provider. So what's up next on the Real Agenda? The next in our Profit for Purpose series will be with Julian Richer, founder of Richer Sounds, a hi-fi retailer. And then every Friday we bring you the weekly Wake Up, where our gang in the studio talk to you about some of the Real Agenda issues that need to be and can be fixed. Not only can you listen and subscribe online through your podcast provider, but you'll soon be able to hear the Real Agenda on digital radio too. That's not BBC Radio 2. That's what I mean there. It's also on a digital radio. Maybe it will be on BBC Radio 2 or Radio 4. So listen out for that. Special thanks to our sponsors, Reverse Media Group, one of the fastest growing search and media companies. Find out why at reversemediagroup.com. And don't just take my word for it. Reverse Media Group has just been listed as the 9th fastest growing private tech company in the UK. So one thing is certain, people want to see change to a more compassionate and just society, as well as more courageous politicians prepared to do the right thing for people, over party. It's urgent and it's up to us to make it happen. That's the Real Agenda. I'm Tom Burgess. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.